Okay, this is Incremental Science 28, right? And if you've been paying attention through all the incremental sciences, you know where we at right now. Ultimately, we're normally standing this way, facing the sun when we meditate. We're pulling in vitamin D, right? You're standing this way. But if you know, when I spoke into incremental science like a long time ago, I spoke to how divine energy is coming this way, but we are taking a divine energy facing it. We are looking towards the light. But once you fill up on that light and you get that universal awareness to the highest level, if you remember this illustration similar to this the other day on another incremental science where I showed you how the shadow is the counterpart to you. So it actually has a tether to you. It's like you are the reality and the shadow is the counterpart to you. The shadow is the unseen world of you. So what happens is when you learn to turn around and you meditate into your own shadow, as you're focusing into yourself, then your consciousness can be transmuted from this place. Now, this is a form of death that they don't never talk about, but it actually takes place. It takes place a lot with higher beings that you just don't know about. This is why they don't speak about it, right? So what happens is, and this the stories that I've heard, illustrations I read where they talk about different monks who were able to meditate for a long period of time and condense their energy. They would condense their energy down into like a button, and they would become a button. Like the body suit itself would condense down into a button, and the light would burn the shadow where they sat and they meditated. The light would burn, or the shadow would burn into the stone, and it would be a forever shadow wherever they were meditating. And that was very interesting to me, knowing the concepts of how we go enter through dimensional, how divine energy keeps shining through. That was very powerful because it was like the divine energy that sustained the physical body transmuted from the body into the shadow, which created a new world and left a bead behind. Now the bead that was left behind in his robe ended up being a talisman. They would say that they keep these beads for talismans because they ended up being good luck because of the energy that the individual was able to transmute in between this reality to the next. So they don't really speak about these deaths that occur a lot, but they do happen. Sometimes when you have these particular deaths, people would just sit and they would dry. They would just dry out and their body would actually take on a mummification without being mummified. And their energy, who knows where they went at that point? Nobody knows if they went anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like if they traveled like at that point. But I know the connection to the reality is you would have to river yourself out. You would have to condense yourself down, and then the shadow, which got burned into existence or burned into the stone, will become the new ether, which is the river. That's the river. That's the unseen river, the etheric river that came from you, out of you, that gave you life of creation or allowed you to create, and it will go back into a universal form, coming behind another black hole, subsequently creating a whole nother universe, becoming anew. That's focus, condensing. When you condense your energy, shrinking is the possibility. And it's been so many different, like we get stories where they say the guy went on a boat and he was in the boat rocking back and forth for years, and then all of a sudden he found himself in these crazy storms, and then these crazy storms sucked him in through this wormhole, or this water, whirlpool, and the whirlpool took him to another world where he ended up being a giant. He's a giant around this land. These people are like, "Oh my God, it's a giant! We have to get him!" And they tie him down and all this, and they call it Gulliver's Island. I think it was Gulliver's Island. But these stories are subsequently levels to understanding of when you transmute through certain things. Like it can happen by mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this is why I was using the story of Gulliver's Island, like the guy on the boat going back and forth in the water. Now we talking about water, right? So then water mixes when it spins. So the waves is the greatest mixer in the world. So then you have all your chemistry in the body, lack thereof, you're fasting because you're not eating. You're in the boat, you know what I'm saying? You're in the direct sun, you know what I'm saying? So you got all the makeups of universal principle to send you somewhere at this point, whether you know it or not. You're not eating, so the euphoria is going to kick in. The heightened ability is going to kick in. The mixing of your fluids in your body, you're stirring around like this, like all your chemicals are just mixing around in your body like constantly, and the sun is baking you. You don't know where your mind sent you at that point. Like everything, whatever they want to call it, schizophrenia, crazy, sent you there, and you woke up somewhere else, and ultimately it wasn't in this dimension. And that's crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like, because a lot of people disappear like that. They tell you about the Bermuda Triangle and all this other craziness, and planes flying and getting lost in the clouds and never coming back for like 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, different situations happen interdimensional all the time. Being able to document them, that's something completely different. But I stumbled onto just different particular knowledges that peak itself, and getting some synchronicities and cross references with certain things that I think of myself. They made their self knowledgeable. They made their self knowledge with connected to understandings that I have that became wisdom. So then understanding that the focus from you to you is in the same. It's just that you never put that energy in the same. You don't never focus on. It's like saying that, like, you, how many times do you look in the mirror and just study yourself? It's kind of like the same thing. You're looking in your reflection and you're studying yourself. You're transmuting your energy to where that is at that moment, but you're not particularly focusing on it as giving life to it. You know what I'm saying? And the shadow is the same aspect. That through the darkness is going to become another level of light. And don't forget that you have the sun that's lighting you up at the back. So the constant value of solar, the darkness, it's constant. It never stops. It goes on forever, ever. Whether or not you notice or aware of this or not, it just happens. This is the universe is being created for eternity, whether you're a part of it or not. Depending on, and see, what's crazy is we got here through a higher understanding of having this concept of living or knowing divine principle. That's how we ended up getting here. But ultimately, through all of the conjunctions and the worldly actions that's taking place, you're not going to know how to get here again. You know what I'm saying? And people want to say, oh, reincarnation. Well, reincarnation is you being placed in this situation again, not a new world. You see what I'm saying? This situation again. That's something completely different. So something had to take over this in order for you to be put here again, because when divine energy fills up, it's going. It's going to the next spot. You see what I'm saying? So for somebody to say, hey, we can refurbish this area and have you relive it again, that's deep. That's deep. You might want to check on and see who the foreman of the plant is. You better check on and see who the boss of the factory of that one, because after divine finished pulling that cup up, the cup overflows and it gives enough to give another universe. So it get deep at that point. That's all I'm saying. It just get deep. So I ain't gonna hold on to that. Let's just keep going real quick. All right. So after you get to a point in the meditation and you understand that you're transmuting your physical energy into your dark energy. So that's all of the goodness that you've gained. This is why you meditate. This is why you focus. This is why you have balance. This is everything that you put into the right aspect of you. Then you put that into your shadow self. So then now you're working the unseen part of you to bring balance, because you're taking the physical aspect that you're learning, the balances, and you're pushing them into your shadow through meditation. So once you do that and you connect those two worlds, possibly you can condense. You possibly can condense. This may take years to do. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Depending on the person. I don't know. I'm not speaking to something I've actually witnessed. This is something I've read about and things that I've seen people speak about, right? So if you are able to condense and make yourself minuscule, turn your existence into the etheric river. The etheric river changes to the black hole. The black hole recreates the process all over again, creates a sun and another universe, thus bringing back a new. And the new is the new universe. Until next time, we can recreate the process again. You know what I mean? Incremental science 28, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's, and step one was yesterday. Like, I was showing you, we always facing the sun. When do you turn around? When do you have enough confidence to turn around from the sun and just let the sun warm your back while you give off the energy to something else, knowing that you are that solar energy. You are the pathway. You know, just like a male carries a shaft and the pathway for him to bust a nut. You know what I mean? It travels. It goes from him to that source to create a baby. You know what I mean? Everything in the universe is aligned behind the motion of divine motion. This is why you're able to understand divine principle, and every other principle. Look at what's laid out and then watch it go. You say, oh, okay, it's all the same? Yeah, it's all the same. I ain't gonna hold you. Nah, bro.